Yeah, obviously this is extra. Like, I don't know, and like it's a very hard thing to get people to understand in this principle because if someone walked up to me or I find someone walking on my property and they say, "I'm going to kill you." Now, if you take their life, did you commit violence?
Just because they said that, they didn't actually act on it. If you
Well,
attack
they
them,
have the
yes.
means, they have the ability, they have the belief that they're gonna do it. I mean,
Well,
that's the
then I
thing.
don't I don't think you should attack them, just because they threatened you. A word is different from an action.
Well, no, because you're inside. You're saying I am
You're
going to.
inciting it, but
I
the
am going
action is what
to. I
matters.
will. It may not be tonight. It may not be tomorrow. But when you're least expecting it, I'm gonna get you.
Okay, so
Now,
that
what? How do you react? Because this is obviously
yes. No, this is
off
this
the
is this
record.
is good. This is like us
I don't
talking
know.
about lying before, and trying to look at the different scenarios. This is great because people ask this question. I would say to this scenario, what would you do, right? Just think about anybody who would get this like threat. And people get threats all the time, like online nowadays, like, oh, I'm gonna do this, oh, I'm gonna do that to you. And the influencers are like, well, I can't really do much about it. It's like I can maybe just report them on the platform that they're on, but there's not much that's probably going to happen. They're just going to get banned off of my view of or my page, my channel, and that's the best I can do. And other than that, just defend myself. And I agree with that. It's all you can do. If you're going to try to make it initiatory and say, oh, this threat is really threatening, well, I'm going to take action on it, then a lot of things can be very slippery slopey because if somebody finds something offensive, how much are they going to take offense to that? To the point where it's legitimate for them to use violence against that offense. Well, it's like, well, if I insult you and say you're balding, Aaron, because you don't you shaved your head and you shouldn't have, which is true, by the way. And you're like, man, Corey said that to me, and it's like, oh, now you take offense to that. Everybody has a different level of taking offense, but notice when it comes to an action, it has objective results. The results are objective, and you're harming somebody's property directly. It's different from words, which can offend people, but it's when those words turn to actions where it becomes deadly. Otherwise, those words are just they're just energies, frequencies going out there that can incite violence, that can lead up to violence. But that's where responsibility comes in. And responsibility leads the way toward non resistance and self defense and non aggression, all three, understanding their time and place when they should be used. So if I were to receive a threat like that in real life, the first thing I would do would let everybody else know, because they just let me know something that literally puts them on the radar. Okay, so first of all, they if they wanted to do something against you, it's probably not a good idea to let someone know ahead of time. If they do, that's because they're like really evil and they like to torment you. They want you in fear. So
Right.
otherwise, a criminal is just going to do their thing and leave. Unlike the government, by the way, which stays in your life forever and everybody thinks is legitimate. But a criminal is going to do their thing and leave. Otherwise, a criminal might plan it out and torment you and want you to be under fear. But if they have you in that state of scenario, you can warn other people. You can be prepared. And that, I think, is even better because then it allows you to be more responsible. It allows you to pay attention more to your environment. It allows the community to know about this individual and keep watch of things to prevent more things from being happening into other individuals. Do you see how it's not so bad? But if you were to commit violence upon that person, it would cause so many questions and missing holes that it would be really problematic. You'd be taking somebody's word on something like, oh, Aaron, why'd you do violence to this guy? Well, because he said he was going to do violence to me. It's like, well, that's not really a good justification. Like, just because he said he's going to do violence to you, he's just a wacky person. Like, people say that online all the time, like people make threats all the time. Just because they're in fear or because they're emotionally in distress doesn't mean they're actually do it. A lot of people will say things, but yet they're cowards. They won't actually do it. You see what I
Right.
mean? There's a lot of levels to this.
Right. Right. And like I do understand that. I do understand that sentiment, and it would incline you to obviously be more responsible. However, is there not an aspect of someone that makes a threat that they're going to do something to you where are you going to live every day worrying about that threat? Are you going to
Exactly.
live every I mean, but let's say you are. Let's say you are. Let's say you take it very seriously and that person You take their words very seriously. They are
Then
a
they
person
win.
of action, maybe. Well, they tell you that they're going to do something to you wrongfully. They have they have foregone their right to do this behavior. They do not, if they have initiated the violence, they have foregone their rights. And someone takes that threat seriously and puts down that violence with force.
Hey, listen, in a free world, people are going to do that. Like, no doubt about it. What you're saying, this scenario, they're gonna do this. Like, people do it to this day. If
Let's
they're getting
say
threatened,
in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of natural law.
yes. Well, that's the world I'm
Would
speaking
you
of.
say that there, if you take that threat legitimately serious, because obviously if someone makes a threat, we've all heard the person who says, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do whatever. I'm gonna make your eyeballs into soup." Whatever they're gonna say. Now, in the circumstance where someone takes that threat very seriously and they do see that as valid, and they put an end to that violence through deadly force, pre pre the physical initiation, there was only a verbal thought form
They
of
should let
this.
everybody else know first. Like, they should make their intent clear, the actions clear. They should say, "Oh, look, this person is threatening me, and I don't know how I feel about it." And then, what if the community already gets together with this person? Now this individual has support, and now they're no longer in fear. You see what I mean? There can be
Yeah,
so many preventable steps before it even gets to any initiation of force or violence on any which way scenario. This person could be outcasted from the town because they realize how much of a threat they are, that they need to leave that town now. Like, oh my gosh, I threatened this guy and now he let everybody know. I shouldn't have done that. Or, I threatened him and now he came back with a bunch of, weapons and other things. And I don't know what the neighbor's going to think of this or whatever. Like, this is the importance of community. And that's better than any government because there's people at watch there and ready to act. So, like, using this as a justification for any government at all would just be null and void, even if this scenario was like really bad, because government still is minutes away and treats the issue and starts applying laws to it. And everybody gets into this mess they don't want to get into. People spend money, and then the government takes more than they came for, and a bunch of other issues just happen. And then they're getting funded by other people that are getting taxed on. So it just turns into a mess. Violence to
yeah,
prevent violence, and it doesn't help anybody.
yeah.
So
especially
honestly,
with especially with something like the state, you
yeah.
have someone who maybe, they get out of line, they let their temper get away from them, and they tell someone, "Oh, I'm gonna get you, I'm
So
gonna
this
kill
is
you." Then the state kidnaps them over it was over some words, but then there's still the
right.
state, stealing that
And those
person.
are just some individuals who are likely of criminal intent themselves, right? I mean, let's look at it, politicians and what they do, and the people above them. I mean, we can speculate. I like having these conversations. I think they're great because they look into different gray areas and different holes in the picture, but we can probably speculate all day about different scenarios. The point is that even if you were to say, "Oh my gosh, well, this is dangerous and could happen in a free world," well, just so you know, it would be more dangerous in a non-free world because less
Yeah,
people are aware and looking for solutions to how to fix it, and less people are armed, and less people have the resources, and there's less solutions, and there's less people in general. And that's what people need to keep into account. Like, yeah, there's always going to be wrongdoing, but it's the matter of how that wrongdoing gets aggregated. It only gets aggregated in the form of law, where certain things can be permissed or certain things could be an exception to everyday morality or common sense. There can be no common sense if it's constantly being barricaded and illusioned by laws that are saying this should be the common sense because it's everywhere and applies to all things. See what I mean?
yes, yes,
So
great,
I think hopefully I cleared that up, but
yeah.
it's like it is. I think it's a good scenario to look at.
It is very nuanced. Obviously, I'm not just gonna shoot someone in the head for being on my property and trespassing. It's like,
Yeah,
that's the
like I
thing
said,
is,
the average criminal is not going to want to do that unless they're a
I
psychopath and
just
they're
I
mentally
just
insane.
think, dude, and it obviously it is like we were talking about property rights and where property rights ends. Like Bill Gates, more not stealing, but properly acquiring property, and it's like there's such a nuance. It's like, okay, sure, there are like, domain laws where someone trespasses on your property and then you throw a grenade at their feet and then you explode them, and then the state says, "Oh, okay, well they were on your property trespassing." Well, it's like, does
They were
that
on
mean that?
public property, but they were entering my house with they were walking toward my house with a gun and they were looking at me and pointing it at me the whole time. But no, they were on public property. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
like,
And we have no cameras, even though the whole town has cameras, but
but
we have no
I
camera footage.
and
And
like
that's
I just wonder
secluded
when
to
the
us. It's
gavel
classified.
drops. When the gavel drops, you're visiting your creator, and they're judging you, and they say, "Well, this is the crimes that you've committed." I mean, I guess it depends on whether you were just doing it because you wanted to get someone for saying that they were going to get you, or if you actually felt threatened. Like your conscience knows the difference. Obviously, like they will know if you're lying. Like God knows if you're lying. God will know if you actually took that as a threat or you just wanted to be the ultimate winner in the situation. You know what I mean?
There's
I,
less
th- I
superficial identities and peoples in a free world because more people are genuine. They're more faced directly with the truth or with
yeah,
God, may you say. So things are to be more honest, and honesty is to be more expected, which is a better world. You know, it may be scary, like, oh my gosh, honesty, I have to be honest. But it's like, yeah, because in order to get by, you're going to have to.
yeah.